Hey, I'm Nick Symmonds, two-time Olympian, CEO of Run Gum, world champion, medalist, and you're listening to the Physical Performance Show.
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome back, or welcome to the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by Sanitarium PB and Pogo Physio. I'm Brad Beer, physiotherapist by trade and training and founder of Pogo Physio. The aim of this show is to educate and inspire you towards the pursuit of your own physical best performance. We do this through interviews featuring some of the world's top physical performers and also some of the world's preeminent experts in their chosen fields. Each week, we'll aim to bring you the highs, the lows, and the learnings of the featured guests. We do this through featured performer episodes, interest editions, expert editions, and coaches corner editions. And on today's episode 142, I bring you a conversation that I recently had with US track and field star Nick Symmonds. By way of bio, Nick Symmonds is really a remarkable athlete who has had an outstanding career. Nick's resume boasts 5 outdoor world championships, 2 indoor world championships representing the US, 6 US 800 meter national titles, 2 Olympic games, and 1 silver medal at the 2013 World Athletics Championships in the 800 meters. For those that know of Nick and his career, Nick's also been well known for his advocacy work in advocating for the rights of professional athletes. And in one instance, Nick boycotted his selection for the 2015 World Athletics Championships on the basis of his advocacy work. Nick's also the CEO and the founder of Run Gum, an energy company whose mission is to fuel and inspire people to make the most of their busy days. So there's a whole lot that we discuss in this conversation. Of note, how to channel a champion's mindset and deal with self-doubt. We cover the usual highs, lows, and learnings. Here is my conversation with Nick Symmonds, US track and field star. Nick Symmonds, absolute thrill to invite you to the Physical Performance Show. I know we've been trying to set this up for a little while, so thank you for your time today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Nick, we can cover so much in terms of territory for your career, the highs, the lows, and the learnings. But let's start with something fun. What's one thing that Nick Symmonds, CEO of Run Gum, advocate for track and field athletes, runner, geez, you've got some titles. What's one thing that you're learning at the moment?
And I feel like I'm learning a lot these days now that I'm no longer a pro runner. But one thing I'm really working on learning right now is how to edit videos. I love YouTube. I love watching videos there, and I want to put more videos up. But I got to figure out how to edit these things. So if you go to my YouTube channel, just type in Nick Symmonds. I actually got a lot of videos up, but I had a videographer on staff that was helping me with them, and now I got to learn how to do it all myself. And a lot of your younger listeners are probably laughing at me because they could do this in their sleep. But for me, I'm technologically challenged, and it's hard for me to edit these things.
Well, Nick, I actually watched the Mount Kilimanjaro documentary that
yeah, that was a good one.
You guys put together this morning, and I thought that was sensational.
Well, I wish I could take credit for that. I just went and climbed, and I had my good friend Ryan Southwell with me, who's a professional videographer. And he's a one-man show. I tell you, I was struggling on that mountain, and he's running circles around me, getting the shots, and he put together this really beautiful 17-minute documentary of the climb. So, yeah, check that one out. I think that's, one of the things I'm most proud of up on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, Mile to Mountain. So we'll tag that up, Nick, in the show notes. Nick, let's go back to give a little bit of context to your platform that you now have, and obviously your current work with Run Gum. But how did you find your way into what would turn out to be a 20-year career spanning multiple Olympic Games, multiple World Championships, indoors and outdoors out-ins? How did it start? A little birdie tells me that you were chasing a girl.
Yeah, so I grew up playing soccer and ice hockey and, hiking and fishing. I hated running, to be honest, but I had a crush on a girl in middle school, and she said she was going out for the cross-country team and invited me to go out and run. And I found out practices were co-ed, and I get to spend a lot of time with her. So I thought, hey, that sounds great. Yeah, I love running. And I signed up for the team. And even though I hated the practices, or rather I hated the running at practice, I enjoyed spending time, with all my friends and being outside in beautiful Boise, Idaho. So it was a love-hate relationship, I guess you could describe my early days with running.
What was the hate part of it?
It's when you're that age, you don't really just want to go for a run. You want to chase a ball or chase a puck. But I had to put my miles in, and I guess I just didn't love the grind of distance running at the time. I learned to love it, but at the age of 13, just constantly logging miles seemed really monotonous and boring to me.
And Nick, I believe as a young 13-year-old, you went into the sport for a girl and started to develop some love for it. In terms of your talent level, I've heard you explain before that it surprises you the heights that you scaled in your athletic career. Silver medal at the World Athletics Championships in the 800 in 2013, plus everything else, 6 US titles. Really, were you just starved of results as a young teenager? How did you progress? Put us in the picture there of what you were like as a junior.
Yeah, I think I would call it being a big fish in a small pond. And for your Aussie listeners, I come from a really small state, kind of up in the mountains. The state of Idaho isn't really known for producing runners. I can't think of a single other professional runner that came from Idaho, but I was good for the state of Idaho. And then I went to a really small college and was really good for that small college. And, it was one of those things where I just wasn't really tested. I think I have a natural ability. That's just genetic. I can't really take credit for that. But I also was just, really excited to see how good I could be. And I liked running because I got to see, what I put into it, I got out of it. It paid me dividends. If I worked really hard on my soccer team, I may sit on the bench for half the game. But in running, everyone got the same amount of playing time. And I could step on that starting line and really radically change my future just by laying down a great time. And so I trained so hard and made a lot of sacrifices to see how good I could be. I won some state titles. I won some NCAA titles, but it really wasn't until I graduated from college where I really got, tested by the best in the U.S. And in my first U.S. championships, I ended up finishing second. It was the first race I had lost in 7 years, over 800 meters. So I think there was definitely, a talented runner waiting just for his moment. And then I got that moment when I turned 22.
It really does speak to the importance of environment, correct? Like, trying to pull the best out of yourself by surrounding yourself with fair play and good challenge.
Yeah, I think every great athlete is pushed by their competition, and I never hated my competition. Quite the contrary, I loved my competition. I loved every single time I got to step up into a new race with better runners because they always pushed me. And ultimately, just that desire to be at the top level is what pushed me to train so hard and ultimately race at the very, very highest level. The Super Bowl of track and field, I competed in an Olympic final in 2012.
Nick, you mentioned genes. Where do you think Nick Symmonds' genes come from? Did it come from your mother, father's side, back in the bloodline?
It's funny you mentioned that. My dad was a hockey player and played in college. My mom's jogged her whole life, but they'd be the first ones to tell you that they're not elite athletes by any means. So it was some combination. Who knows how these genetics work? I know so many great athletes out there whose parents weren't particularly great, at any one sport. But you find that right combination of genes and determination, and you can create pretty incredible athletes out of it. I was never going to be 6'6" playing in the NBA, but I did like track and field for the fact that there seems to be an event for everybody. I would be sitting at dinner on a Team USA event, and to my left I'd have a 300-pound discus thrower. And to my right, I'd have a 90-pound marathoner. And I just used to laugh at it. We were all teammates. So I guess I gravitated towards track and field because I knew that, somewhere in the 32 events, there would be one for me.
So interesting. What happened to the girl, by the way, Nick?
Oh, she went on to college and I went on to college. And I think, we went our separate ways. But that's another thing I liked about running. I was good at it, and I hadn't been really good at anything else. I was a mediocre soccer player, a mediocre hockey player, but I was really good at running. And it got the attention of people that I wanted to impress: girls, college coaches, eventually Nike. So I liked the attention for sure.
And can you remember your first 800, Nick?
Yeah, actually, I started out as a cross country runner, and then I eventually found track, and then I said I'll run the 2 mile. And then I ran the mile, and I kind of worked my way down. A lot of people kind of worked their way up. I was the opposite. And I said, I'm a distance runner first and foremost. I never do anything less than a mile. But one night, they were running the DMR. I think it was a sophomore in high school, so about 15 years old. And they were running the distance medley relay. And the kid that was supposed to run the 800 got sick. And they said, "Oh, make Symmonds run it." I said, No, I don't run the 8. And the coach said, "You're a 2 miler. This is literally 25% of what you race. This is like a cool down for you." So I said, "All right, fine, I'll run it." And I split 157, which in Idaho for a 15-year-old was jaw dropping. And so he said, I hate to say it, but I think you might be an 800-meter runner. And the rest is history. I focused pretty much on the 8 and the 15, from then on.
And, fast forward many years and, you take that incredible silver medal in that World Champs. Could you have imagined that your future would turn out how it did with your professional running when you were that young boy doing a 157 at 15 years of age?
Gosh, no, man. If you went back and talked to me in high school and said I'd run professionally for 12 years and compete in 2 Olympic Games, I'd have just laughed in your face. I mean, even as recently as like my junior, senior year of college, I remember my coach saying, "Hey, you really have a shot to be great." And I just laughed. I'm like, "Dude, you're delusional. Like, I'm good for Division III, which is the smallest division in American university system. But I'm like, I'm never going to the Olympic Games, But there were a lot of people that recognized something special in me, even when I couldn't see it in myself. And I'm really glad that they did, because they took that small ember within me that wanted to be great and just kind of stoked the flames. And I just, it's one of those, it's like I say, it's a snowball rolling downhill. You have a little success and you want more, so you train hard, and you have more success, so you train harder. And before you know it, you're standing on the starting line of an Olympic final.
And you make it just seem so easy, Nick.
Well, it wasn't, but I can't take credit for a lot of it. I will take credit for the perseverance, and the dedication that I had. But God, I had such a great team around me. My coach, my physio, my lifting coach, my agent. You just can't put together a better team than what I had. I look at some of these young athletes coming out of school, and they don't have the team around them. And I tell them, you got to get that team in place, because there's not a single person who makes it to the Olympic Games that doesn't have just a phenomenal team in place.
And when you say your team was so great, what made them great? What was it about this collection of individuals around you?
They were highly experienced, and they worked really well together. I've seen what I call team cancer in some of the teams, where the coach and the agent just can't see eye to eye, or the lifting coach, oversteps their boundaries, or some weird mix of personalities that just doesn't work. For whatever reason, my team was very humble, very supportive, and they just worked really well. They were the kind of guys that all wanted to sit down and have a beer at the end of the day with each other. And I think that worked out well. I not even once had to worry about team drama in 12 years of performing on the track.
So interesting. I mean, Nick, you said that they could see the potential that lay within you. And as for anyone, we can't see what's in us. We can get a sense for it, but people can often see it and call it out. I mean, was there a moment where your belief, so you've got this great team around you that believe in you, that are guiding you towards maximising your potential, but was there a moment through your development, Nick, where your belief was really galvanised and you thought, you know what, I can be world class in this track and field endeavour?
I don't know if it was belief so much as fear, if that makes sense. So my junior year of college, between my junior year and senior year, my last 2 years, I recognized that I was about to leave university and I had to go get a job. And the course of study I was in, biochemistry, I basically needed to either go get a lab job or go take more schooling to become a doctor. And I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to go to more school. I didn't even want a real job. Just the idea of working a 9 to 5 sounded absolutely horrible. And so I recognized, I said, hey, I've got 1 year to see how good I can be at this running thing, or I have to go do something I don't want to do. And so I actually packed my bags up and moved to Mexico for the summer. And I lived at 9,000 feet and, a little over 3,000 meters, I think. I trained my butt off for 10 weeks. I lost 20 pounds and I came down a different human being. I mean, just literally a lean running machine. And I kind of, went from being a really good student to kind of a mediocre student, but I went from being a mediocre runner to a really good runner. So I guess I doubled down and went all in on running, and it really paid dividends.
And when you went off to put that time in, Nick, it was so interesting. You said you didn't want to be a doctor, yet your father, I believe, was a vascular surgeon. Were your parents supportive of you going to pursue and try and find out what you had in terms of your running potential, or were they encouraging you to stick with your studies and the more, I guess, traditional expected path?
I would have been a 4th generation doctor. That's just what my family does. We become doctors. And so I guess I didn't want to be a doctor. I just didn't know what else to do. So I'm like, I guess that's what I'm going to do. But I think I would have been a really crappy doctor. So, my future patients survived that, thankfully. But my parents were extremely, extremely supportive. They were the kind of parents that said, hey, you're young, take risks, pursue your dreams. And I was really fortunate to have them, not just behind me emotionally, but financially as well. University here in the States is ridiculously expensive, and they footed the bill for my uni so that I could go to the program that I wanted to. And they also, were the ones picking up my airfare for those first few races before my Nike contract came through. So I was really fortunate to have them supporting me in multiple ways.
And the biochemistry degree was not a waste with the origins of Run Gum at all. Nick, did you have brothers or sisters growing up, and were they athletic like yourself?
I have a little sister. She's 2 years younger than me, and she might be the best athlete in the family. She was a state champ in soccer, a state champ hurdler, and she got multiple offers to go to Division I universities and play sports for them. But she wanted nothing to do with it. After 4 years of high school sports, she said, I just want to enjoy college. And so she went off to Gonzaga University and didn't play sports there. I don't think she regrets that. She had a great time in college, and I actually had kind of a miserable time in college. But she's probably a better athlete than I am.
Wow. So there's that gene pool again, Nick. Nick, you used 2 words that really jumped out there. One was perseverance, and the other was dedication. What's Nick Symmonds' definition of perseverance?
It's synonymous with stubbornness. I get something in my mind, and I just can't not see it through to the end. And sometimes that's actually a flaw. Like, I really should have dropped out of biochemistry classes in college because I absolutely hated them. And I had so many more things I was passionate about, like Spanish and, literature. And I could have been studying those things. But once I had committed to being a biochem major, I couldn't stop. I had to see it through to the end. And whether it was becoming an Eagle Scout or finishing university, even though I hated it, or running long past my prime, I've always had this feeling that if I don't see it through to the end, I'll always regret it. And so it's kind of a mixture of stubbornness and also wanting to realized the investment. I remember when I was 28 and I had just, finished the Olympic Games. I was like, I'm done with this crap. I'm so over running. I really want to retire. But I felt that I owed it to myself and young Nick, who put in thousands and thousands of miles, to not quit, to see it through to the end, to see how good I could really be. And I'm glad, because, that year, a year later in 2013, I went on to win a world silver medal and finish number 2 in the world. So it was kind of, even though I was over it emotionally, I just kept training because I had to. I felt I owed it to my younger self to see how good I could be.
And isn't there a great takeaway there, Nick, about staying the course, not quitting before that inflection point that so often comes? And as you say, I really like that phrase. Realizing return on the investment, which was your time, your sacrifice, and more than anything, the potential that would have been untapped. Nick, where does Nick Symmonds's? Because I've been an observer of your career for years and admirer. Whether it's your advocacy for athletes' rights, your persistence in building run gum, or your running career, what drives that stubbornness? What drives that? Where's that come from? Is that just you, or is there an experience you had?
Yeah, I think it's just me. I wish I could tell people, oh, you just do this and it comes, but I've kind of always been a bit bullheaded. My dad's a bit the same way. My grandfather certainly was, and I guess it's just my personality. And like I said, sometimes it's for the worse. There are moments, where I should have, called it quits. But in athletics and in business, it certainly has been a beneficial characteristic.
And what about dedication? What's Nick Symmonds' definition of dedication?
It's one of those things where you prioritize the things that are important to you. There's only 24 hours in a day, and you're going to be asleep for a third of that. So you've got to wake up and you've got to say, what's important to me? What am I dedicated to? Is it being the best athlete? Is it being the best student, the best husband, the best father? Prioritize your day, and then don't let the minutia steal your precious time and energy. I wake up each day and I say, I want to be fit. I want to be the best CEO that I can be. I want to be the best boyfriend and brother and son that I can be. And I make sacrifices and dedicate my life to the priorities. I think too often we allow ourselves to let you can bleep this out, let bullshit creep into our lives and distract us. And it is a constant challenge to eliminate that bullshit. And you have to constantly say, is this really helping me get where I want to go in life? And a perfect example, when I was younger, I drank too much. I remember in college, I just drank too much. And one day I woke up and I said, what is spending, Saturday night drunk in a bar till 2 a.m.? How is that helping me get where I want to go in life? Is that making me a better athlete? Certainly not. Is it making me a better student? No. Is it helping me in my personal relationships? Not really. It's just making me poorer and hungover the next day and costing me hours that I could be more productive. Nothing wrong with tying one on now and then, but I was at a point where I recognized that it was the bullshit that I needed to cut out.
Yeah, dedicating to life's priorities. I mean, and now you've got a multivariate array of priorities, which we'll get to with your CEO role with Run Gum. Nick, before we jump into the learnings, of which I know you've got so much to offer this show, the highs, the lows. Briefly, what's the highest moment of your career and why, and the lowest moment of your professional running career and why?
Yeah, great questions. Wow. The highest moment for me was standing on the starting line of the 2012 Olympic finals. It really is the Super Bowl. And I didn't win a medal that day. I finished 5th, but I ran a time that would have won a medal in every single other Olympic Games. So I ran a PR by almost a full second. So personal best, I think that I did everything I could to be the best 800-meter runner on that day. And I'm very proud of that. And I can follow that up 2 years later. I had an injury that prevented me from being able to race at all, to be able to train. It was an avulsion fracture in my knee. And that was the lowest low by far. I was ranked number 2 in the world. I could collect, a $5,000 to $10,000 appearance fee every time I stepped on the track. And I literally couldn't run a step. it was torture. I mean, it was really like being in a prison of sorts.
And what was the biggest learning you took through your time in that prison? Sitting on the sidelines, watching, professional athlete income pass you by, being frustrated. I'm a physiotherapist by trade, and I always say we don't treat people's pain, we treat their frustrations, fears, and anxieties. So what got you through the prison?
Well, I had been so all in on running that I had failed to cultivate some of my other hobbies and interests. And, one of that's fishing. And so I went out and went fishing a lot more, which was cathartic. And another one is entrepreneurial business. And, I think one of the biggest pains of that time in my life was that I didn't have anything to look forward to each day. I didn't have a sense of purpose. And I also didn't have, I was missing out on a lot of income by not being able to race. And so throwing myself into my entrepreneurial passions kind of solved two problems. One, it gave me something to do. I had to build this business. And two, the business was successful, it would take care of that financial loss. And so as soon as I made that decision to start another business, it was almost like all of that pain and angst evaporated. And I said, I don't have time to be sad. I got shit to do. So I threw myself all in on business that summer and launched Run Gum.
And what was the genesis of it? I mean, Run Gum, we know it now, what it does, but what led to its development? Why was it even on your radar?
Well, I had been sponsored by a few energy drink companies. They were sending me their products, and I was drinking these horrible energy drinks that tasted horrible. They had a lot of sugar. They had a lot of carbonation. And I'm laughing because I'm like, I love the way these things make me feel, but who wants to drink 16 ounces of liquid before you go run or lift, and work out? And it just didn't make sense to me. But, I fell back on that biochemistry degree, and I thought I can evaporate all the junk and take just the stimulants that I want, the caffeine, the taurine, and the B vitamins. And I can use a piece of chewing gum as the delivery vehicle. That way I can get the stimulants I want in a sugar-free, zero-calorie form, and I'll absorb it 5 times faster because I'm absorbing it through the lining of my gums. And I'd thought about creating this for so long, and I tinkered around and made some trials. And I told my coach this, and I told my friends and family this. I'm like, this is brilliant. You have to make a business out of this. But I was abroad. Like I said, I spent 6 to 8 months out of the year overseas. There was no way I could do this while I was running professionally. But that summer, I had 6 months of, what the doctor said was just, hey, rest. Don't run a step. So I had 6 months of nothing but time and energy to throw into starting a business. And in April, when I realized my summer season wasn't going to materialize, I said, all right, here we go. We're going to start this business. I approached my coach. We wrote some checks, bought 1 million pieces of caffeinated energy gum, and the rest is history. That was a little over 4 years ago today, and we've sold several $1 million worth of Run Gum since.
And I mean, in terms of the size of the operation now, Nick, can you put some perspective around your distributorships? I believe you're in maybe 500 plus locations. What's the Run Gum success story look like now?
It's even bigger than that. We're a team of 8, so it's still a small team, but we're in over 3,000 doors here in the United States. We're available internationally from a third party called Vitacost.com. So anyone outside the United States can go to Vitacost.com and order Run Gum. We're on Amazon here in the States. We ship direct through our website, rungum.com. So we've got a lot of different revenue channels, some new products in the works, a new flavor and a new functionality coming in 2019. So I'm glad my career ended when it did. It was a great career, but I'm just so passionate about this business. I wake up every day and I rush into the office because I'm just so excited about what we're building.
What makes you most excited about it, Nick?
Man, I'm an entrepreneur. The money makes me excited. I know that's not what everyone wants to hear, but darn it, I just love the fact that, again, my hard work pays me dividends. If I work my butt off on Run Gum, it's going to make me wealthy. I like that. That's why I'm drawn to entrepreneurial business. It's why I was drawn to track and field. But there's also a another level to that. I like that our company gives back. We say at Rungum, our mission is twofold. It's to fuel and inspire people to make the most of their busy days. When we fuel them with our revolutionary energy product, but we inspire them with the content we put out. And if you follow us on Instagram or any of our social channels at Rungum, you'll see that the stuff we put out is really intended to inspire people to get off their butt, to go exercise, or get out and go for a walk, or have a little more energy while you're running errands or running into a meeting. If you watch that documentary that we were talking about earlier, I didn't have to bring a videographer with me on Kilimanjaro, but I thought this is a really unique opportunity for me to encourage people to try new things. I had never climbed a 19,000-foot peak before. In fact, the highest I'd been before was 16,000. And I went out of my comfort zone, and I wanted to inspire other people to do the same.
Kilimanjaro was fueled by Rungum with yourself and your videographer, Ryan, I believe. Is there a favourite Rungum story you've heard of? I'm sure you've heard of many people that let you know what it's done, but one or two that stick out?
That's really one of the most rewarding things about being an entrepreneur and creating a product, is that you get all these unique stories of people saying, hey, I love your product. It helped me in this situation. And we've got truck drivers that love it, because they don't have to take bathroom breaks. We've got surgeons and nurses that say, I'm better at my job. I'm better for my patients because your product allows me to be more focused and more alert. But perhaps the one I thought was the neatest, maybe not the most important, but one of the coolest ones. There's a couple girls up in Wasilla, Alaska, and they race sled dogs. Overnight sled dog races, hundreds of miles, and they'll be awake for days at a time. And they said that they used to bring energy drinks with them, but the energy drinks would freeze, right? Because it's sub-zero up there. And they said, so they were looking for alternatives, and they saw our product. And now when they race these sled dogs in sub-freezing temperatures, they bring Rungum because it doesn't have any liquid in it, so it can't freeze. And I'm just like, I had never even thought of that application for our product, but good on you for using it.
You're listening to Nick Symmonds, US Olympic track and field athlete and World Athletics Championship silver medalist, sharing around the highs, the lows, and the learnings of his stellar career. Support for today's show comes from Sanitarium PB. Looking to achieve your personal best? Sanitarium PB can help. This refreshing drink contains 32 grams of protein per serve to help with muscle recovery when included as part of a balanced diet. Sanitarium PB is made with a balanced blend of milk and plant proteins, all your essential amino acids, and contains no artificial sweeteners. Find Sanitarium PB in delicious chocolate or vanilla flavors at your local fuel station. Be your personal best, recover and refuel with Sanitarium PB. Support for today's show also comes from Pogo Physio. We exist at Pogo Physio to help you get back to your physical best following injury. We want everyone who walks through the doors of Pogo to get back to their physical best, complete rehabilitation, and cross their physio finish line. We do this through traditional session-to-session appointments and also our industry-first and award-winning fixed-fee rehabilitation services, including the very popular monthly Wellness Booster Packs, which comprise of hands-on physiotherapy and remedial massage therapy and active rehabilitation, including clinical Pilates and use of state-of-the-art equipment such as the Alta G anti-gravity treadmill, all from a low $195 per month. To find out more about Pogo Physio and our unique services, or to schedule your 1-hour initial appointment, jump over to pogophysio.com.au. For now, let's jump back with this week's featured performer, Nick Symmonds, on his career highs, lows, and learnings. Nick, in terms of your mindset, you are such a focused, go-getter, driven character, and I think you've got a lot to offer people around your approach. I've heard you say that when it comes to people physically performing, so we just spoke about maximising people's busy days through their fuel selection. I've heard you say that many people beat themselves before they even get to the track. psychologically. So
100%, yeah.
what advice could you give to those that are maybe not looking to win a World Athletics Championship medal or make an Olympic team, but they're looking to rock up and go for the PR or the PB at their local run or 10K road race? What's your advice around psychology of performance?
I mean, there's two things that really come to mind, and I hope they don't sound trite or cliche, but they really are important. The first one is to not limit what you're capable of. And especially for younger runners, I get, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids that say, "Hey, Nick, how do I get faster?" And I look at them and I shake my head. I'm like, at your age, just be older by a day. I've missed those days when I was in high school where just going through puberty. I mean, I didn't even have to train, and each week I'd get faster and faster just because I was another week older and more mature. So I tell any athlete, don't step on the line and say I'm only capable of this, because you have no idea. If you've been training for another week, you're a week stronger than you were before, and you have no idea what you are capable of on that day. So the first thing is take all that crap out of your mind that I can only do this today. That's just not true. And the second one is how to deal with nerves. And anyone who stood on that starting line knows that that there's that nervous energy, the butterflies in the stomach. And one of the most important things that I came to terms with in my career was to stop fighting that feeling. Everyone wants to say, well, how do I get rid of that? You don't want to get rid of that. You need that. That's adrenaline coursing through your veins. And adrenaline is the most powerful performance enhancing drug in the world. And if you can harness that energy, it will allow you to do superhuman things. When I ran in the Olympic final and almost ran a full second personal best, that was just pure adrenaline, just pure energy at the excitement of the opportunity. And I harnessed that, and it allowed me to do something that honestly I didn't think I was physically capable of. I would have bet my entire net worth that I'd never run 142. And on that day, I even surpassed my own, wildest dreams and ran 142.9. And that's what those nerves can do for you.
And was that mindset, your approach there, something that you had to work on, or as this stubborn, as you've self-labeled as stubborn, athlete, you always had it, or was that something you
I worked on it. I worked on it. People, you have to train your mind just as much as you have to train your body. And I had a sports psychologist by the name of Jeff Troche, and I worked with him for a decade on some of these things. So there are athletes that are better mentally than others. And I think I was, like I said, I was stubborn and I was confident, and, I had a good start, but I never would have gotten as far as I did without Jeff Troche. And they can be expensive, but I remember when I talk about that team, Jeff was a very integral part of the team, and I'm lucky that I had the resources, to be able to afford him.
Nick, you finished your career, achieved so much on the track, and then you set about a marathon. Briefly, how did it go, and what advice would Nick Symmonds give to first-time marathoners, and will we see you take to another one?
It went well. It didn't go as great as it could have. I really didn't train that hard. I think I did like 20 or 30 miles a week, and I probably should have done more like 70 or 80, but I just didn't have the time to get the training in. The longest run I did in preparation for it was a 16-miler. And obviously 26.2 is a heck of a lot longer, but I just didn't have the time, and I was underprepared, and I said, I'll just figure it out when I get there. I ran 3 hours, even, and it was fun. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I don't know that I need to do another one. It might be a one and done kind of thing for me, but I really believe that 95% of human beings could step on the starting line of a marathon tomorrow and finish it. It might not be fun. You might not run as fast as you'd like. It actually probably would suck for most people, but the human body is capable of so much that most people could put one foot in front of the other for 26.2 miles tomorrow if their life depended on it.
And I share that belief, Nick, in my work professionally as a physiotherapist. I absolutely stand by that as well. Nick, briefly, your advocacy role in sport, for those that follow you, they know what you stand for. But for those that don't, a little bit of context, and what's one thing you've learnt through your advocacy work in standing up for the rights of athletes?
Well, I think that as I became a wiser businessman and started to understand how money works, I could see that in track and field there were billions of dollars exchanging hands, and yet all the athletes around me were living under the poverty line, and it just didn't make sense. And I started digging, and I'm like, holy cow, these governing bodies, the IAAF, USOC, IOC, all of these governing bodies. Athletics Australia, I'm looking at you. They just skim off so much money from the system that very, very little has a chance to make it down to the athletes, and that's a travesty because without the athletes, we don't really have an event at all, do we? So, in my advocacy, I really just wanted to make everybody aware that there is money in this sport. So many times the powers that be want to say, oh well, we need to have a bigger sport so that there can be more dollars to share. That's not the issue. There's billions of dollars in track and field. It's just that the bureaucratic fat cats are taking 99% of it, and that's a real shame.
And for the listener of this show, is there anything that you'd like to see people do to take more of an interest in this or to support the cause?
You know what? I've spent a lot of time in Australia, and I love the way that your culture views sport. It's really an event. You make an event fun. It's not just about the sport. It's about the food. It's about the booze, the gambling. And I don't think I've had more fun watching sports than I have down in Australia. America and some of the rest of the world could really take a page out of your book and needs to make sport more engaging. We do a good job with football. We do a good job with basketball and baseball, but track and field here is stale and it's packaged poorly. We're not allowed to drink alcohol most of the time when we're at track and meets, and I have no idea why. We still don't allow gambling on track and a lot of other events. So we need to bring track and field into the 21st century.
Nick, my patriotism is rising knowing our international reputation is about booze and gambling.
Yeah, you guys are fun, man. You guys have a lot of good. You're a fun culture. It's very lighthearted, and you guys crack a lot of jokes and you drink a lot of beer, and I sure do appreciate that.
You're listening to US track and field star Nick Symmonds share around his highs, lows, and learnings from his remarkable career. If you missed last week's episode, it was an interest edition featuring best-selling author Matt Fitzgerald. In this episode, Lewis Craig spoke with Matt around the concept of 80-20 running, the idea of going slow to go fast. Matt penned this book. It became also a bestseller. So here's a little snippet of Lewis Craig and Matt Fitzgerald talking around this so important training principle.
There are coaches out there who are technique coaches, right? And they'll say, okay, like here's the right way to run. And then I coach athletes to all run that same way. But what the research shows is that when you force an athlete to run like someone else, like to copy, like there's a better runner, run like that person, you actually become less efficient.
If you'd like to tune into the full episode featuring Matt Fitzgerald, be sure to jump back, download the episode from your favorite podcast player, and while there, check out the archives dating right back to episode 1 featuring surf lifesaving Ironman champion Ali Day. For now, let's jump back with Nick Symmonds of the US sharing around his highs, lows, and learnings. Nick, are you ready for a performance round? Rapid fire series of questions, and you can chalk this up as a training session for the day.
Well, let me chew some run gum so I'm firing on all cylinders, but here we go.
Training session most disliked?
Tempo runs.
How long?
Any distance, but we used to do 5-mile tempo runs and they were horrible.
Training session most loved?
All out 200s, spiked up, ripping them off.
And what were you knocking those off in?
When I was really fit, I could do 6x200 in 21 seconds off 200-meter walk, jog, recovery.
Amazing.
I miss those days.
Pre-race meal. What would fuel you prior to run gum?
I used to have we used to race pretty late. Most of our races were in the evening, and I would try to have like a turkey sandwich 4 or 5 hours out. That seemed to hold down pretty well.
Through your career, what was your bedtime and morning time typically?
Honestly, I'm an old guy. I go to bed at 9 and I wake up at 5, and I've been that way for a while now.
Who's the athlete Nick Symmonds most admires and why?
Ooh, there's so many. That's a tough one. I really admire LeBron James, and I didn't for a long time, but the way he's handled the pressure, the maturity he's shown from an early age, the amount of money and time that he gives back to his communities, and I just really, I'm not a huge basketball fan, but I'm a huge fan of the person that he is off the court.
Toughest competitor you ever raced, Nick? Who was that and why?
Ooh, that's a good one. Marcin Lewandowski is an 800-meter runner from Poland, and we run very similarly. We're built very similarly. He's not genetically the most gifted 800-meter runner, but I've trained with a lot of him, and I think he trains harder than just about anybody I've ever met. Makes more sacrifices. He truly wants to be great and is willing to do what it takes to get there.
Is there or was there a mantra that you would use, Nick, when you were racing? Some regular piece of self-talk?
I've in anything, whether it was school or running or business, I've always said, don't waste this opportunity. When I have a big meeting with an investor or when I was on the track racing at a high level, I'd take a deep breath before I go into the meeting or step foot on the line and say, listen, asshole, don't waste this opportunity. That's talking to myself. I had to tough talk myself a little bit because it's easy to say, oh, this isn't that important. It's not that big a deal, trying to talk yourself down because of the nerves. You need to do the exact opposite. You need to step into the moment and say, this is a big deal. Do not waste this opportunity.
Yeah, nice. Nick, best recovery tip?
Sleep. This was my cardinal rule of training as a pro athlete. If I wake up to an alarm, then I failed myself as an athlete that needed rest. I was really adamant about never, ever waking up to an alarm if I could help it. If my body needed sleep, I gave it sleep. That was the most important thing.
Gosh, so much wisdom there. Nick, one word to describe your racing style.
Chaos.
How would Nick Symmonds describe being in the zone?
It's a real flow. And I think that, a sports psychologist will tell you that elite athletes find that flow when they're really firing on all cylinders. And I just remembered when I was really fit, I could get into a race and just almost laugh. It didn't hurt. And then people often describe the 800 as the most painful event in track and field. But when I was really fit, it didn't hurt. It just was like spreading butter on toast. It's the only way to describe it.
Nick, I've done lots of these, and no one's ever described the zone as spreading butter on toast.
It's so smooth. It's so smooth.
When was the last time Nick Symmonds was in the zone?
Wow. There's no way to replicate that 800-meter mindset in that zone. It's, like I said, it's chaotic, it's panicked, but it's at the same time just effortless if it's done right. And I haven't really found a way to replicate that. There have been some moments when I'm mountain climbing where I'm on a 1,000-meter pitch and everything evaporates. It's quiet, it's peaceful. All I have is the sound of my own breath. And there have been a few moments, working my way up the side of a glacier where I've felt that zone, that flow.
And final question, Nick, in the physical performance round here, what's the hardest session you've ever done in training?
We would do this, occasionally as we were preparing for an outdoor season. We would do 3 by 400 meters with 4 minutes recovery. And the goal was to have the lowest average time. And when I was really, really fit, I could average 50 seconds for that workout. So I'd probably go 51-second quarter, rest 4 minutes, 50-second quarter, rest 4 minutes, 49-second split. If I could do that workout just as I described it, I was in about 143 shape pretty consistently.
Yeah, amazing. Nick, well done. You're out of the zone there, the performance
I survived.
round. You survived. Nick, of all your learnings, of which there are so many, but if you had to boil everything you've learned through your career to one piece of advice to help listeners of this show perform at their physical best, what would that one piece of advice be?
Wow, this is tough because now I have to think: are we going physical or mental, macro or micro? I want to connect with people on more than just an athletic front. So I'm going to talk about the worst thing in the world.
Go for it.
By far, the worst thing in the world is self-doubt, and everybody deals with it. I deal with it. The richest man in the world deals with it. The greatest athlete in the world deals with it. The difference between people who are successful and the people who aren't are the ones that have learned to identify what causes self-doubt inside them and nip it in the bud. And there are many, many days I wake up and I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, you can't do this. You are in over your head. And I've learned ways to nip that in the bud and just ignore and get back to work. And I just feel for people that haven't figured out a way to deal with that self-doubt, because it is truly the most cancerous thing holding people back.
And could you give a tip, one thing that you've learned to overcome your self-doubts, Nick, to help us?
Most of my self-doubt used to come from fear of what other people would think if I failed. And, once I recognized the source of my self-doubt and recognized that, if I fail, forget the haters, I'll just get back on my horse and try again. Then all of a sudden the fear of failure didn't seem so catastrophic. And I was able to try things, take more risks, knowing that I would be resilient and I'd bounce back. I mainly learned to ignore what other people would think if I failed. That was the most important realization, was that I had to get past that.
Yeah, and I think everyone experiences that at some point. So that's a terrific piece of advice there, Nick, to identify it and work on it. Nick,
it's not easy.
No,
yeah, it's not easy.
And you still feel it day to day now, right?
Yeah, I still feel a sense of self-doubt, but now it's more like letting myself down or letting my loved ones down, which is way harder. It's easy to let down some stranger on Twitter, forget them. But when you let down your friends and family, then that's a harder pill to swallow. And I don't want to do that. I want to be the best friend and family man that I can be.
Was there ever a time where you did feel like you let down your friends and family through your career?
Not a lot. I've been, pretty squeaky clean for the most part. But no, nothing immediately jumps to mind that was like catastrophic that we couldn't work our way through.
Nick, a fun question. We call it the personality question. Gives us an insight into your personality. And that is 3 people at the dinner table, living or past, excluding your loved ones. Who's at Nick?
Wow, okay.
Who's at Nick Symmonds' dinner table and why?
Okay. Wow. This is a good one. I picked Steve Prefontaine, who was my first running hero. I just like to, he talk about a charismatic guy. He just didn't have self-doubt. He put himself out there. He raced unlike anybody's ever raced before. I'd love to chat with him. I'd love to sit down with Barack Obama. Whether you love him or hate him, I think he was a great leader, and I thought he was a fantastic president, a very, very smart person. I'd love to have him there. And then we don't want it to just be a stag party, right? So we got to get a girl in there. Let's think. Who do we want? This is tough. I got to pick just right. I always had a crush on a long jumper from Russia named Daria Klishina. And I don't know how good her English is now. I think it's gotten a lot better, but you can't find a prettier girl out there. So just as a nod to my 25-year-old self who had a crush on her, let's get her at the table.
All right. Well, Nick, that's an interesting table. And Nick, the Physical Performance Challenge, every featured guest of the show issues listeners with a physical challenge for the week. Now, this can be entry level or difficult. What's Nick Symmonds going to lay down as a physical challenge to us this week?
I get to give you a challenge?
Correct. The listeners of the show.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say run a mile, but I don't know if you guys know miles that well, but get out there and run a kilometer and try to do it every day for 7 days. So often I talk to people and they're like, I want to get into running. And I say, okay, well, what do you want to do? They go, well, I ran an hour yesterday, but I'm super sore today and I don't think I can run today. I'm like, well, that's because you went out and ran an hour yesterday. So I'm going to challenge your listeners, whatever they're trying to do, whether it's become a better runner or a better lifter, whatever you want to do it for 7 days in a row. And if you go into that mindset that I have to do it 7 days, you're going to be real gentle and easy on the first day. But if you want to be great at something new, you have to focus on consistency before volume. It's about consistency trumps volume every single time. I think it's better to run 1 kilometer every day for 7 days than to try to run 7 kilometers all at once, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, some great pearls there and a great challenge. Nick, finally, finish these sentences. The most important thing in life is?
Family.
What drives you to work hard?
Money. For better or worse, money.
Where does pressure come from?
Myself.
Are you more internally or externally driven?
Internally.
And what mistakes is Nick Symmonds, I should say, afraid of making?
Getting in over my head, if that makes sense. I sometimes bite off more than I can chew and have to dig myself out of holes, if that makes sense.
Well, Nick, that is such a terrific pun there. You are biting off more than you can chew. But I think you are doing a terrific job of it. And Nick, thank you for your time today. If we want to find out more about Nick Symmonds, Run Gum, the documentaries, your challenge of, I believe, climbing 7 peaks in the highest peaks on the 7 continents, where can we find out more, and what would you like us to do?
Well, I'm on social media at Nick Symmonds. Symmonds is spelled a little differently. It's Symmonds. I'm putting more videos up on YouTube every day. And, follow Run Gum. Run Gum's putting inspirational content out. You can sign up for our email. You can follow us on social at Run Gum. I just appreciate all my followers all around the world. I used to spend our winters, your summers down in Australia. And I remember spending a great summer in Melbourne and a great summer in Sydney. And I've got a lot of friends down in Australia and I miss it. I need to come down and climb Kosciuszko. I'll let you know when I come down.
That sounds like a good idea. And we'll have to organize a videographer and power it with Run Gum.
Yeah. And bring some beer. You guys got great beer down there too.
Any Australian beers that you remember?
No, I can't, but I sure drank a lot of them. I definitely remember drinking a lot. And a shout out to Lachie Renshaw, who was an 800 meter champion for Australia. He was my gracious host when I'd come down and visit, and we used to train hard and drink hard. And I miss those years down there. It was such a beautiful, beautiful country.
Nick Symmonds, thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys.
So there you have it, another episode of the Physical Performance Show, and I trust and I know you enjoyed today's episode featuring Nick Symmonds. If you did, then please let Nick and myself know. You can find Nick over on social media at Nick Symmonds. That's SYMMONDS. You can also send through a Podsy. A Podsy's simply a photo of the episode, a screenshot of the episode that you're enjoying from your smartphone or device, and you can tag in the Physical Performance Show. The handle for Instagram is at Physical Performance Show, and you can find me at Brad_beer. Furthermore, if you'd like to give feedback around the show, your feedback, your thoughts on how we can make this better, feel free to send it across on an email, b.beer@pogophysio.com.au, or send me a direct message on social media. We're always appreciative of any feedback around how we can better serve you with the show. A big thanks, as always, to the 3 very good folk who make this show possible and have made it possible this year, week in, week out. That is Daryl Misson, our audio engineer, Susan Wilkin on all things show administration, and Matthew Olding on all things graphic design. And a massive thanks to you for making this show possible week in, week out by tuning in. Special thanks to those that have taken the time to leave a rating and review over on iTunes. That helps this show grow. And a massive thanks to you for subscribing to the show from wherever it is that you download the episodes from. Subscriptions of the show really do help in the greatest way get this show into the earbuds of more listeners. So thank you for your subscribing to the show. If you are into your running, and I suspect that you may be tuning in today to Nick Symmonds, then take advantage of 50% off the recommended retail price of my bestseller, You Can Run Pain-Free. It's 368 pages, packed full of a 5-step method to help you enjoy injury-free and faster running. Jump over to pogophysio.com.au, head over to the shop, whilst there and enter the promo code POGO, lowercase POGO 2018 to receive your 50% off the recommended retail price. Coming up next week, we review the calendar year that was 2018 through our highlights reel. We'll bring you snippets from a variety of guests, expert editions, featured performers, coaches corner, and interest editions that resonated with you throughout the year. Thank you for your support in 2018 of the Physical Performance Show. We'll be back in 2019. Until then, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.